Aita, drama, secrets, confessions. Welcome to Trove Reddit.
I never thought my tiny apartment would turn into a nightmare. During the day, it's the safest place, so quiet I can even hear the clock ticking in the living room. But when night falls, that room feels like a giant trap. I swear something is living here with me, even though the door is always locked. At first, it was just the feeling that someone was standing right behind me. Then came the nights when I saw a dark shadow lingering in the doorway, silent and terrifying. Many people say I'm imagining things, but I'm the one who witnessed it. And I know for sure it wasn't a dream. If I told you everything that happened after that, you would never dare sleep alone again. Subscribe now so you don't miss the horrifying truth. The first night I realized something was wrong was at 3 a.m. I didn't wake up from a nightmare. It was the faint knocking on my bedroom door that pulled me out of sleep. At first, I told myself it was just my imagination. But when I held my breath and listened, the knocking came again. Steady. Patient. Like someone was waiting for me to open that door. Have you ever heard strange sounds at night and questioned whether you were really alone? I sat up slowly, my heart pounding so hard my ears buzzed. The room was unnaturally still, the only light coming from the street lamp outside, seeping through the curtain. Then I saw it. The doorknob trembling, as though someone was twisting it from the other side. And just when I stepped closer, everything stopped. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. Would you have dared to open that door? The next morning, I tried to convince myself I was exhausted, that my mind was inventing things. But the signs began stacking up. Objects in my apartment shifted even though I never touched them. A faint handprint appeared on the bathroom mirror, still visible through the fading steam. And remember, I live alone. Nobody else has a key. So how do you explain that? On the third night, it escalated. I woke up to a whisper right beside my ear. The room was empty, but the voice was real. Raspy. Cold. I'm still here. Do you believe something can exist between two worlds, watching us in the shadows? If you want to know what happened next, things that will make you think twice before sleeping alone, subscribe now, because the story only gets darker from here. That night, I thought I would get used to the strange noises. But I was wrong. Terribly wrong. Around midnight, while I was scrolling on my phone, the light in my room flickered. The lamp went out. The phone screen went black. Only thick, suffocating darkness swallowed the entire space. Have you ever felt like the whole world was suddenly consumed in an instant? In those few seconds of silence, I heard footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Not from the hallway outside, but from inside my room. I froze, every breath weighed down like stone. Then by the window a figure appeared. Not clear, just the outline of a tall, thin shape, standing motionless, his eyes like two endless black holes staring straight at me. If that were you, would you scream or stay silent and watch? I gathered every ounce of courage, squeezed my eyes shut, praying it was only a hallucination. But when I opened them, the shadow had taken another step forward. I could hear the wooden floor creaking beneath its weight. The air turned so cold my skin prickled with goosebumps. And I knew whatever it wasn't human. In desperation, I reached for the light switch. When the room lit up again, it was empty. But on the wooden floor, right beside my bed, there was a wet footprint. Who or what had been in my room the whole time? Do you dare believe that once you've seen the shadow for the first time, you can never escape it again? If you feel the chills right now, hit subscribe because what comes next is far more terrifying. I thought everything would stop after that night. But the truth is it was only the beginning. The next morning, as I was washing my face in the mirror, I noticed something was wrong. The face in the reflection wasn't entirely mine. The eyes staring back were cold, hollow, like a stranger borrowing my body to look straight at me. Have you ever seen your own reflection feel more alive than you are? I bent down and splashed my face with icy water. The sting was sharp, tearing at my skin. But when I looked up again, I heard whispers. Not a single voice, but layers of them, men, women, children, all murmuring at once, right beside my ear. My heart pounded out of control. I couldn't look away from the mirror. And then, another face appeared behind me. Pale. Hair tangled and wild. Lips moving, repeating one word. Over and over. But I couldn't understand it. What would you do if the mirror showed you a face that wasn't your own? I screamed, spun around. The room was empty. No one was there. But when I looked back at the mirror, my face had gone pale because on my neck, in the reflection, there were the marks of invisible hands gripping tightly. I bolted out of the room, heart about to explode. But the question haunting me was this: if the reflection in the mirror is no longer me, then who am I? And what is it? Do you believe that sometimes a mirror doesn't just reflect, sometimes it's a doorway? Don't forget to subscribe, because what comes next will keep you awake for many nights. That night, I didn't dare to sleep. Every door in the house was locked tight, but my mind was tangled like a rope being pulled tighter and tighter by unseen hands. I lay frozen in bed, the dim yellow nightlight casting trembling shadows on the wall, shapes that looked as if they were whispering to one another. Then I heard it. A voice. Faint, stretched, warped like it had traveled from somewhere far away. Ma. It was weak, fragile. But it called a name. My name. Have you ever heard your own name echo in the dark, even when no one else was there? I swallowed hard. The voice came again, this time sharper. It called me. It was coming from the long pitch-black hallway that led to the front door. I knew I shouldn't go, but my legs trembled as if under spell, pulling me off the bed. If it were you, would you step into that hallway? The hallway was so silent I could hear my heartbeat crashing in my ears. Each step echoed unnaturally, stretching out like I was walking through an endless void. The ceiling light flickered on, off, as if invisible hands were toying with a switch. And in those split seconds of shadow and light, I saw it. A figure, standing at the end of the hallway. It didn't move. But the voice was no longer distant. It was right next to my ear. Come closer. What would you do if a voice whispered that to you in the dark? I could barely breathe. My throat tightened, my eyes stung with tears, yet my body kept moving forward. Closer. Closer. Until only a few steps separated me from that shadow. Then it vanished. But the floor where it had been was wet, lined with footprints that trailed toward the front door. Would you follow those footprints? Or would you run? I collapsed to the ground, shaking uncontrollably. If someone or something was standing at the end of my hallway, inside my house, then how did it get in? And worse, how did it know my name? If you're still watching this, hit subscribe now. Because what happens next is 100 times more terrifying. I ran into my room, slamming the door shut, my heart pounding so hard it felt like my chest might burst. But the moment my back pressed against the door, I heard it click, a dry, sharp sound echoing from the hallway. The front door. It was opening. Even though I knew I had locked a deadbolt and chain. I dared to peek through the narrow crack of my bedroom door. The hallway was pitch black, but at the far end, the front door was slowly creaking open. No one touched it. No hand on the knob. It was moving on its own. Cold air seeped in, biting against my skin like knives. The porch light outside flickered wildly, throwing dim flashes across an abyss of pure darkness beyond the doorway. And from that darkness, a gust of wind hissed through the gap, carrying whispers. They weren't calling my name anymore. They were fragments, scattered words, like hushed conversations. Right outside my threshold. I froze. For a split second, I thought about running out, slamming the door shut with all my strength. But my legs refused. They were rooted to the floor, as if invisible hands were holding me in place. Then, the door stopped. It hung there, open just wide enough for a single person to step through. Not wider. Not smaller. The exact space needed to let something in. I held my breath. No one entered. No one left. The door just stood there, yawning open like a monstrous mouth, waiting to swallow anyone who dared approach. If you saw your front door creak open on its own in the middle of the night, would you dare walk closer? And in that moment, I knew one thing for certain: whatever opened that door wasn't human. I turned my back, thinking that if I didn't look, everything would just disappear. But in that very moment, thud. The sound of the window glass rang out, dry and sharp. I jolted, snapping my head around. Outside, in the suffocating darkness, a face was pressed against the glass. Not a human face. Its eyes were wide, hollow, empty like black holes swallowing every trace of light. Its mouth curled into a pale grin, stretching unnaturally all the way to its ears. Even worse. That face looked eerily like mine. My heart felt like it stopped. It didn't blink. It just stood there, staring, patient as if it had waited for 1,000 years just for this very moment. Thud. The sound came again. A pale, bony hand, its fingers thin and skeletal, tapped lightly against the glass, as if signaling me. Open it. In my head, a flood of questions tore through. If that really was me, why was I standing outside? And if it wasn't me, then what did it want, wearing my face? The tapping grew faster, pounding in rhythm with my own frantic heartbeat. I screamed, yanked the curtain shut. But just before the fabric fell, I caught a glimpse of its lips moving. Only 2 words. But they froze my blood. Let me in. If you were me, would you dare to open that window in the dead of night? And if you want to know the horror that comes next, hit that subscribe button now, because I fear the next part you won't want to hear alone. That night, the silence was so heavy I could hear the ticking of the clock hands. I pulled a blanket over my head, thinking if I just covered my eyes, then whatever was out there couldn't reach me. But then, a strange sound echoed. Thud. 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 Footsteps. Not from inside the house, but from the roof right above my head. Each step was slow, deliberate, as if someone wanted me to hear every single one. Not fast, not rushed, but pressing down, like they were testing me, counting the seconds slipping away. I held my breath. The whole room turned icy cold. In that moment, I felt like I wasn't the owner of this house anymore. There was someone else, walking freely above me, as if the roof had belonged to them all along. The footsteps stopped, right over where I was lying. I could almost picture a figure bending down, ear against the tiles, listening to the trembling sound of my breath beneath. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it would vanish. But just when I thought I was safe, clink. A faint sound rattled from the chimney. Then something began sliding down. Fingers. Gripping. And a voice whispered, thin and sharp, carried like wine through a crack. "I know you're awake." I froze. I didn't dare move. My whole body felt chained down. Because if I shifted, even the slightest bit, that thing on the roof would crawl inside and drag me away. Now tell me, if it were you, lying there in the dark, would you dare to breathe, knowing something is listening right above your head? I thought everything ended when the footsteps on the roof disappeared. But no. The scariest part had only just begun. The room sank into absolute silence. A heavy silence, as if something was pressing the air straight down onto my chest. Then I heard it. A whisper. Very close. "Your name." I froze. That voice didn't belong to anyone in the house. It didn't come from outside either. It was right next to my ear. Right there in the darkness. In the invisible space between my blanket and pillow. My heart pounded wildly, as if it wanted to burst out of my chest. Then that voice spoke again, carving each word into the air. "I call you. I see you. I want you." I tried to scream, but my throat locked up. All I could hear was my own ragged, frantic breathing blending with the darkness that now felt alive, staring straight at me with unseen eyes. In that moment, I knew. I was no longer alone. Something had called me by name. And once it knows your name, it will never let you go. If you were lying in that room, hearing a whisper right beside your ear, would you dare open your eyes? Leave a comment and let me know. And don't forget to subscribe. Because what happened next was far more terrifying. That night, I knew I had to face it or lose my mind forever. There was nowhere left to hide. Nowhere safe. The house itself had turned into a giant trap, and the predator was the darkness that had called my name. I locked every door, turned off every light, and sat in the living room with only a single candle. The flame trembled like a fragile soul surrounded by demons. Then, the doors began to shake. 1, 2, 3. All at once, as if dozens of hands were pounding from the outside. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, driving straight toward me. I shut my eyes, clutched the candle tight, and whispered a desperate prayer. In the very moment I thought I would be swallowed whole, everything went silent. No more banging. No more strange breaths. Only the flickering candle. And a charred handprint burned into the wall behind me. By morning, I left the house and swore I would never return. But tonight, as I share this with you, I still feel those eyes watching me from the shadows. Do you believe what I went through was just a hallucination? Or was there truly something lurking on the edge of life and death? Leave your thoughts below. And if you think you're brave enough, don't forget to subscribe because the next story is even darker. Now, rest for a moment. Gather your courage. Because in the next episode, we step into the second story. The Child in the Attic. A secret more haunting than any darkness you've ever known. See you in the next episode, where the nightmare continues.